Imagine a single man who, through his crimes and murders, effectively declared war on an entire nation. He was responsible for the deaths of nearly 2,000 elephants, 184 people losing their lives, the illegal logging and smuggling of 65 tons of sandalwood, and more than 20 kidnapping operations involving former government ministers and famous celebrities. Through these crimes, he earned millions of dollars. All of these large-scale crimes were carried out by a single man. His name was Veerappan. His story has inspired dozens of productions, including global documentaries, movies, and TV series. Even today, he is widely regarded as India's most notorious criminal. For over 30 years, Indian police tried to stop him with thousands of officers and dozens of large-scale operations. But Veerappan managed to stay hidden deep within India's dense forests. So, what finally stopped Veerappan? And how did his story come to an end? This is the incredible story of one of the world's most ruthless criminals. Veerappan was an extremely active child from an early age. Growing up in poverty and surrounded by a troubled social environment, he began poaching when he was only 10 years old. At the time, his uncle, Salve Gounder, was a sandalwood smuggler. Sandalwood is highly valuable because of its rich, dark red color. The wood obtained from these trees is used to make expensive luxury furniture, because sandalwood grows very slowly and is extremely rare. It has been prized for furniture making for thousands of years and has always been considered highly valuable, in addition to sandalwood smuggling. Veerappan also began gaining experience in illegal elephant poaching. He frequently spent time with local poaching gangs that hunted elephants and sold their ivory on the black market. As a teenager, he killed an elephant with a rifle for the first time, recognizing his willingness to commit crimes. Local criminal gangs quickly welcomed him into their ranks. At the age of 17, he became involved in violent clashes between rival gangs, and during one of those conflicts, he killed a man for the first time. At the age of 18, Veerappan left his uncle's smuggling gang. He abandoned his family and his village, choosing to live alone in the forest. By 1970, while living in the forests of southern India, Veerappan had joined a local outlaw gang. The gang's leader quickly recognized his potential for crime and took him under his wing. According to international estimates, fewer than 500,000 elephants remain in the wild today. The disappearance of these magnificent animals is largely the result of human activity. Over the past 30 years, elephant poaching has tripled. In 1989, an international agreement was signed to ban the ivory trade in an effort to protect elephants. Unfortunately, the ban also fueled the growth of the illegal market. As international restrictions drove up the price of ivory, it became even more profitable for organized criminal groups. An even sadder fact is that ivory has no practical use in medicine or any other essential industry. For centuries, it has been used mainly for luxury goods and works of art. In reality, elephants are killed for their tusks, simply to satisfy the demand of wealthy buyers. International conservation organizations and law enforcement agencies in many countries have been fighting the illegal ivory trade for years. However, their efforts have achieved only limited success. Veerappan's criminal activities became one of the most striking examples of this ongoing problem. The first known confrontation between Veerappan and law enforcement took place on August 27, 1983. That day, while he was hunting elephants, a forest ranger attempted to stop him. The confrontation quickly escalated into an argument, and Veerappan killed the ranger. For the next 3 years, Veerappan continued committing crimes while successfully avoiding capture by the Indian police. However, in 1986, he was arrested for the first time. He was sent to prison, but was released a short time later. For reasons that remain unclear, a local official reportedly paid a $2,000 bribe to secure Veerappan's release. Even after leaving prison, his hatred toward the police grew rapidly, fueled by personal issues involving his family. According to reports, his younger sister, Mala, had taken her own life after experiencing serious problems with the police. After his release from prison, Veerappan decided to show no mercy to anyone who stood in the way of his criminal activities. In 1987, he kidnapped a senior officer of the Indian Forest Service who had been fighting against poaching, and brutally stabbed him to death. The murder received widespread media attention and sparked intense public debate at the time. However, the public attention surrounding the case had no effect on Veerappan. On January 5, 1989, he kidnapped and murdered 5 members of a rival criminal gang. Just a few months later, he abducted 3 forest officers, held them captive for 15 days, and then killed them. These events marked a major turning point in Veerappan's life. By eliminating his rivals one by one, he established himself as a powerful leader, opening the door to a new era of criminal activity. In 1990, Veerappan formed a large criminal gang and gained control over much of the forests in southern India. The gang was involved in the illegal logging of valuable timber, smuggling, poaching, and kidnappings for ransom. Veerappan's group hid in remote mountainous regions inhabited by impoverished rural communities. The gang's widespread reign of terror, combined with corruption among local authorities, made it nearly impossible to fight them effectively. According to online sources, Veerappan's gang is believed to have killed around 2,000 elephants during its years of active poaching, earning an estimated $2.5 million from the sale of nearly 40 tons of ivory. The gang was also responsible for smuggling 65 tons of sandalwood, generating an estimated $22 million in profits. Despite these enormous earnings, Veerappan and the rest of his gang continued to live deep in the forest. Unlike many other notorious criminals, Veerappan did not live a luxurious lifestyle. He wore simple military-style uniforms, slept in tents, and ate ordinary meals. Among the villagers living near the areas where his gang hid, he was often seen as a local Robin Hood. The reason was that he provided money to poor villagers in exchange for food and supplies. The villagers paid little attention to the vast fortune flowing into the gang. In their eyes, Veerappan was a hero fighting against the government. The gang also distributed land free of charge to some of the poorest villagers living in the areas under its control. As a result, many of them became loyal supporters and helped hide the gang from the police. The gang expanded rapidly thanks to the large amounts of cash it distributed, gradually extending its influence across more of the forests in southern India. Veerappan had firmly established himself as the unquestioned leader of the gang. Over the years, he and his men were responsible for the deaths of approximately 184 people. Most of the victims were police officers, members of rival gangs, and ordinary civilians. One of the most notorious incidents attributed to Veerappan involved the killing of 2 forest department employees in an exceptionally brutal attack. In another incident, several other forest officials were also killed in a particularly violent manner. Even though crime had become a defining part of his life, Veerappan eventually managed to start a family. In fact, he had always avoided romantic relationships because he believed they would distract him from his work, but fate had other plans. During his frequent visits to remote forest villages, he fell in love with a 16-year-old girl named Muthalakshmi. Her family strongly opposed their relationship. The girl's family refused to approve the relationship because she was still a minor. Veerappan, however, refused to give up and convinced her to leave her village with him. In January 1990, the two were married at a forest temple, and Muthalakshmi began living alongside Veerappan and his gang. During their marriage, his wife gave birth to 3 daughters. Veerappan's life of crime inevitably affected his family. According to reports, during an armed confrontation with the police, he feared that the cries of his youngest daughter would reveal their hiding place, and he allegedly killed her. His wife was arrested several times on suspicion of being a member of the gang. However, each time she was released because there was not enough evidence to secure a conviction. Throughout Veerappan's 30-year criminal career, the police made numerous attempts to capture him. But every attempt ended in failure. The forests where he hid were dense, and navigating them was extremely difficult for anyone unfamiliar with the terrain. Veerappan, on the other hand, knew those forests like the back of his hand. Veerappan had a large network of supporters who constantly kept his gang informed about police movements. As a result, he was almost always one step ahead of law enforcement. In 1993, a special task force of 1,500 personnel was formed to capture and eliminate Veerappan. Unfortunately, members of this special task force were repeatedly accused of committing serious abuses against local civilians, including torture and sexual violence. Instead of protecting the people, some of the officers began causing fear and harm within the communities they were meant to defend. As a result, many local residents became even more supportive of Veerappan. The territory controlled by Veerappan's gang covered nearly 6,000 square kilometers, spanning parts of 3 Indian states: Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Kerala. The gang's widespread criminal operations led to constant confrontations with the police. The gang was highly organized, often had advanced knowledge of police operations, and knew the territory better than anyone else. While being pursued by law enforcement, Veerappan sometimes traveled up to 40 kilometers in a single day, allowing him to stay one step ahead of the police. His gang carried out bold attacks and frequently ambushed police units. One of the most serious incidents took place on April 9, 1993. On that day, Veerappan's gang ambushed a police unit that had been tracking them. Knowing the exact route the police bus would take, the gang secretly planted 14 landmines along the road. The explosion destroyed the police bus, killing 22 people. In the years that followed, clashes with law enforcement resulted in the deaths of 56 members of Veerappan's gang, while at least 20 others were captured and arrested. In 1996, Veerappan's younger brother, Arjunan, died by suicide to avoid being captured by the police. In retaliation, Veerappan launched an attack on a police station. He also tracked down a police officer whom he believed was responsible for his sister's death and killed him with an axe. The gang also carried out brutal attacks against villagers they suspected of cooperating with the police. The gang murdered at least 80 people whom they suspected could provide information to the police. By the mid-1990s, Veerappan had become known across India. His kidnappings began receiving widespread media coverage, making his name known throughout the country. His kidnapping victims were often journalists, government officials, and even well-known Indian celebrities. One of the most high-profile incidents occurred in 2000, when the gang kidnapped the famous Indian film actor Rajkumar and held him captive for 108 days. During Rajkumar's captivity, government representatives met with Veerappan several times in an effort to negotiate his release. The negotiations were also attended on multiple occasions by Nakiran Gopal, the editor of an Indian magazine. As part of these efforts, Gopal traveled deep into the forest to meet Veerappan at prearranged locations, where he also conducted interviews with him. Some of these meetings were recorded on video. In exchange for the actor's release, Veerappan demanded a number of major political concessions. He called for the release of several Tamil political prisoners being held in Tamil Nadu and demanded that Tamil be recognized as the second official language in the state of Karnataka. He also demanded a resolution to the long-running dispute between the states of Tamil Nadu and Karnataka over the sharing of the Kaveri River's waters. The conditions set by Veerappan were not accepted by the government. However, Rajkumar was eventually released alive after a ransom of $6.5 million was reportedly paid for his freedom. In 2002, Veerappan kidnapped former Agriculture Minister H. Nagappa. Police launched a special operation to rescue him, but their efforts were unsuccessful. 3 months later, Nagappa's body was found in a forest in the state of Karnataka. Throughout his criminal career, Veerappan is estimated to have caused around $500 million in economic damage to India. A total of 176 criminal cases had been filed against Veerappan, and the Indian government placed a $150,000 bounty on his capture. Despite the enormous reward, he managed to evade arrest for many years. However, despite his confidence, the police eventually devised a special operation that would bring his reign to an end. On October 18, 2004, Veerappan and 3 members of his gang were invited to the home of a resident in the village of Paparapati. The homeowner had been secretly paid by the police. The food served to Veerappan and his gang was laced with poison. A plainclothes police officer, posing as a medical worker, then persuaded Veerappan and his men to travel to a location where they were supposedly going to receive treatment. Just a few minutes after setting off, their vehicle was surrounded. Veerappan and the 3 members of his gang were killed at the scene. His death sparked mixed reactions among the public. Some local residents celebrated his death by holding a festival with fireworks, despite the many crimes and murders attributed to Veerappan. A portion of the local population continued to believe that he had never harmed ordinary people and that he had donated much of his wealth to poor families. More than 20,000 people attended Veerappan's funeral. Following Hindu funeral traditions, Veerappan's body was cremated and his ashes were scattered into the water. However, the violence in the hills of Tamil Nadu did not end with his death. Other criminal gangs soon took the place of Veerappan's organization. Ivory and sandalwood smuggling continued even after his death. Another unusual fact is that in 2014, a British cosmetics company launched a line of grooming products inspired by Veerappan, called the Smuggler's Soul. The collection included perfumes, soaps, and hair and beard care products. Veerappan's image appeared on the labels of these products. The marketers behind the Lush campaign stated that their goal was to draw public attention to the unethical practices used in the cosmetics industry by many global companies. However, the campaign was heavily criticized by the public. Even years after his death, Veerappan's crimes continue to raise many unanswered questions. Despite earning vast sums of money through smuggling, he never lived a life of luxury or used his fortune to pursue any greater ambition. According to rumors, he buried part of his wealth in various locations throughout the forest. Perhaps he was preparing for a plan that never came to fruition. Although Veerappan is no longer alive, his criminal empire left a lasting mark on modern India. His illegal smuggling operations also inflicted severe damage on our planet's already fragile environment, driven by greed for money and power. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment to support me. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I'll see you in the next video.
அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு இடத்துல போர் எடுத்து ஒருத்த கல்யாணம் மாட்டிக்கிட்டான். கெட்டி பார்த்தா இதோ ஒரு தலைக்காய் தெரியுது, இந்த மனுஷன் கூட தெரியுது. தக்காளி வழியா தலையை மேலே தூக்கடா, டேய் தலை தூக்கடா, நல்லா பிடிச்சி கல்லை வெட்டிட்டு போற மாதிரி ஒட்டங்கடா வழிய சட்டாரி அவனு போய் கேர பற்றி கொண்டு போயிட்டான். இவங்களை முடிச்சு விட்டாங்க.